First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahushai Ba'Shem, Rokah Kodash. Yahweh is to this world ignorantly calls God. Yahushai is to this world ignorantly calls Jesus. Ba'Shem means in the name, Rokah means spirit, and Kodash means holy. And that's on the Paleo Hebrew. I also want to give double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. And today's history, I wanted to go into the history of these Edomites. Right? They call themselves white today, Caucasian, but their true nationality is Edomite. And the history that they have taught is not the truth. Okay, what I'm about to play right now, this is the truth of the matter, and it's written in the scriptures. So let's get straight to it.
Show you guys some of the documents showing the white races of Europe, and we can get a better perspective as to who the Moors were fighting. These are the albinos and the beasts of Europe. And the Moors were fighting these people for hundreds of years prior to the so-called transatlantic slave trade. And one interesting thing I wanted to show you is that when you look at these beasts and albinos and how they have achieved what they've been able to achieve in just a few hundred years, keeping in mind that they were considered wild men just a few hundred years ago, and they had no last names. Many of them didn't even have first names. And I wanted to show you this because I found this very interesting. If you see here the wild men, and you look at the clothing that the people are wearing to the left, you can see here they're wearing this clothing to cover up their hairy bodies. So I found that very interesting. And something else I found in the British Library was one of the oldest genealogy charts, one of the first ones made for white people. And as you can see at the bottom of that genealogy chart, you see two wild men. So they're showing that their ancestry comes from the caveman. So that should give you something to think about, considering that just a few hundred years later, today, we have people like the Queen of England who claim to be of the royal bloodline of Egyptians and Cushites who ruled the earth. They even found the remains of a boy who was buried at Stonehenge in Europe. He was buried in Europe, but he actually came from the Mediterranean Sea in Africa. And he came to Europe 3,500 years ago. So that's in 1500 BC. So we're told that the Moors arrived in Europe in 700 AD.
Right, and that history is straight out of the British Library. Because these are things that they don't teach you here in America. They don't teach you, past Christopher Columbus, before that. You know, they don't really go that far back. And the reason why is because their history would be exposed. And the main history that this took place in was during the time of the Dark Ages, as they call it, right? The Dark Ages or the Byzantine Empire. That time, they talk about how it was a time of very small technological innovation, that there wasn't a lot going on. But that's not true. The reason they say that is because they weren't the ones in power, right? The ones in power were the Israelites, okay? Dark skinned, melanated people that believed in Islam. That's who the Moors were. And I have this picture here, shows you what she was talking about, the wild men of the Moors. And look at the picture. On the left, you got the Edomites, wild men. And on the right, you got dark skinned people, which were the Moors, kings, princes, rulers fighting them. Which the reason they were put in this state is because of a curse that was written in Revelation. So let's go to that. Revelation chapter 20 and verse 1. And I saw an angel come down from heaven having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. Now people would read this and think, oh, it's talking about an actual serpent, an actual dragon, the actual devil, the actual Satan. But they don't understand that this is all symbolic, talking about the Edomites. Because when you go into the word devil, it goes into the Greek word diabolos, which it says metaphorically applied to a man who, by opposing the cause of God, may be said to act the part of the devil or to side with him. Right? Somebody that is a slanderer. So it's not talking about, a demon. It's talking about a man that has those qualities. When you go into the word Satan, right? What does it mean? It talks about the spiritual demon Satan and a Satan-like man, right? So somebody that plays the part. And very simply, it's talking about these Edomites. Okay, they are the wicked of the earth, right? We can read that in Malachi chapter 1 and verse 4. It says, "Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever." Right? So these people, they are the border of wickedness, and the Lord is angry with them forever. That's why he's going to get rid of them. A genocide, according to Obadiah, the first chapter, Isaiah 14, talks about how the Edomites are going to be destroyed forever. So they are the wicked. And that's what it's talking about in Revelation here. So, verse 3 says, "And cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosed a little season." Right, so the bottomless pit, when you go into it, is dealing with that landmass they call Europe. Right, they were cast in that landmass, but they were thrown at the bottom, cast into the bottomless pit and shut up. So they had a spiritual lock upon them that no matter what they try to do, they're at the bottom of society for 1,000 years. And that's why you see these pictures of them trying to rebel and get back, but they can't, because it was prophecy that they were going to be at the bottom. And it says that he should deceive the nations no more. Right? That is their nature, to deceive. It says until the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed a little season. Which, when you go into how long were the Dark Ages, right? What do you find? They say approximately 500 years, which that's not correct. The end is not as precisely defined, but it is often considered to be around 1,000 CE. Right? You keep going. How long were the Dark Ages? It's funny that they've changed that, but this is what used to pop up.